Hi. This is weird. I am not a content creator. I'm not a YouTuber, but I am 29 and I am gonna be having a hysterectomy, and it has been quite the journey to get here. And so I think it's important for me to share my story. I have watched so many YouTube videos of people sharing their journey for getting a hysterectomy, and I found them to be really helpful. But there aren't many that are like around my age. So yeah, I think I've watched every single hysterectomy video that exists on YouTube, and if there were 200 more, I would watch all 200 of them, because it's helping ease my anxiety about having surgery. So I figured if I feel like other people's videos are helping me, then if one person watches this video and feels it's helpful, then I'll be happy about that. So, a little backstory. As I said, I'm 29. I have been diagnosed with PCOS and endometriosis in the past. In 2018, I had a laparoscopic excision surgery for endometriosis, and that took almost a decade of me being in pain and me asking my doctors for help and telling them that I knew that what I was feeling was not normal, and them saying, "You're fine. Some people just get really bad periods. Sucks. Take some Advil. We'll put you on a different birth control and see if that helps." And basically being told there was nothing wrong with me for a decade. To back up, when I first started getting my period, it was awful immediately from the first time I ever got it. Terrible pain, heavy bleeding. It would last like 2 weeks every time. And again, I was told that's just normal. Then when I was 16, I got some blood work done, and it showed that my testosterone levels were high. So that combined with the awful periods, and I had like really bad acne at the time that no like dermatologist topical medication could fix. So they sent me to a gynecologist, and she was like, the acne, the testosterone levels, and the terrible periods, you probably have PCOS, so let's put you on birth control. So that was when I was 16. It helped. My periods went from, being more than 2 weeks long to 5 to 7 days. And I think I still was bleeding more than a normal person, but less than before. And the pain was still pretty bad, but again, it was slightly better than before. So I was like, okay, this must be like what normal people feel. And yeah, then I started realizing like, no, this is still not okay. I was missing school still. I was missing social events. Once I started working, I would have to call out from work when I was on my period. I was nauseous. It was just awful. So I went back to my doctors, and they're like, you have PCOS and you're already on birth control, so like there's not really anything else we can do. We can try a different pill or whatever. I tried like every pill in the book. Some of them helped more than others, but none of them made me feel what I think should be a normal feeling on your period. So yeah, I just spent many years dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of other related issues, and being told by multiple doctors, my pediatrician, my primary care doctor, my gynecologist, everyone was like, you are just someone who gets bad periods. Like, sorry, it is what it is. Then in 2018, when I was 23, I had a friend post on Instagram in March of 2018 about her endometriosis story for Endometriosis Awareness Month. I had never really heard of endometriosis. I didn't know what it was. No doctor had ever mentioned it to me. And so I started Googling, and sure enough, like every single symptom that comes up on Google, I had. Symptoms that I had been told in the past were completely unrelated to, you know, my reproductive system, that I maybe had like IBS, it was like stomach issues. I was then seeing on Google, like it could all be related. And I just had this like aha moment of, oh my God, I probably have endometriosis. And so I went to my gynecologist and I told her what I found on the internet. And I told her about a lot of my like GI symptoms that I hadn't really told her about in the past. I had told my other doctors because I didn't realize that it could be related. And so once I told her that, she was like, yeah, it sounds like it could be endometriosis. But you know, you're already on birth control, so like, I don't think it is what it is. I was not prepared to take that as an answer. So I kept researching, and I discovered that endometriosis is honestly not even really something that like most doctors know a lot about. Like, you would think gynecologists are like taught extensively how to manage and treat endometriosis, but that is not the case. I learned that there are endometriosis specialists that you have to go to. So I found a specialist in my state, in New York, and I met with a specialist, and that appointment was at least an hour long. And immediately, from going over my symptoms and doing a physical exam, the doctor said, you have endometriosis here, 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 and this is why it's causing this pain, and this is why it's causing this pain, and this issue, and this issue. And someone really should have told you this 5 years ago, and you should have had surgery, excision surgery to remove your endometriosis 5 years ago, and your quality of life would have drastically changed. So that was emotional. That made me emotional to hear, because I had spent almost a decade being essentially gaslit by every doctor I came in contact with, telling me that I'm just like have a low pain tolerance, or I'm being dramatic, and that there was nothing wrong with me. And it took minutes for this specialist to tell me there is something seriously wrong. So I then scheduled excision surgery for July of 2018. I had that surgery. I was told the surgery was going to be about an hour to 2 hours. It ended up being about 4 hours. They excised multiple lesions. I'm really tired, so I might be using the wrong word. I'll go back and check this and correct it if I need to, but multiple areas of inflammation that appeared to be endometriosis, and 10 of them came back positive for endometriosis when we got the pathology back. I had a cyst on each of my fallopian tubes that they removed, and my appendix was inflamed, presumably from all the other inflammation going on in my body from the endometriosis. So they removed my appendix as well. That was 2018. I did get a lot of relief from that surgery. The pain got better. My GI symptoms got better. And for a while things were good. And then I noticed that the bleeding never really got better, which I kind of expected because if you know anything about like endometriosis, it's where tissue that is similar to the lining of your uterus grows outside of your uterus, so like in your pelvic area. I'm not a doctor, but from my understanding from that description, that shouldn't really cause heavy bleeding. I think a lot of people who have endometriosis have heavy bleeding. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if it can cause that, but you know, the bleeding comes from inside your uterus and endometriosis is outside of the uterus, so I wasn't all that surprised that that continued. I got a second opinion from another endo specialist a few years later and explained to them some of the continued pain I was having and the bleeding. And he said, I reviewed your records, I reviewed your surgery notes. I think all of your endo was excised. I don't think this is an endometriosis issue that you're currently experiencing. I think this is related to your uterus itself. And so I think you should talk to your gynecologist about that. I then went back to my gynecologist. We tried a bunch of different birth controls again to see if that would help. There were some that helped the bleeding more than others, so I stayed on those. And then the last, I would say about year and a half, things kind of went downhill. I had multiple really bad periods that I haven't experienced since before I went on birth control, over a decade ago. I ended up in the ER, which I've never ended up in the ER for my period, but I had a period that lasted 15 days, I think it was, 14 or 15, and on day 10, I was bleeding so heavily that I couldn't even like stand up. I was so lightheaded and I had feeling like I was gonna pass out. I was nauseous. I was so out of it. I couldn't like leave the bathroom because I was just bleeding so much. So I went to the ER. They then told me to schedule a hysteroscopy and D&C with my gynecologist to see, you know, inside my uterus and see if there was they thought maybe I had a polyp that could be causing it. So I scheduled a D&C, hysteroscopy D&C, which a hysteroscopy is just when they put the camera inside of your uterus, and the D&C is when they like scrape out the lining and everything that's inside of your uterus and send it to pathology. I had the hysteroscopy and DNC. Pathology came back normal. There was no polyps or anything that could have been causing that bleeding. And then when I went for my ultrasound a week later, my uterus was already completely filled with blood again, which should not have happened that quickly. So then I found another endometriosis specialist, and I went to him and I explained everything that had been happening and how the last like year or so my periods just started getting crazy again, even though I'm still on birth control, and I was experiencing bleeding that I have not experienced since before I went on birth control. And I also have been having really, really bad chest pain and shortness of breath for about the same amount of time that my period started getting bad. And when I got my pre-op blood work for the hysteroscopy and DNC, and when I got blood work in the ER, it showed that I was severely anemic, like severely anemic. None of my doctors at the time in the hospital mentioned that to me, even though I was there for heavy bleeding. They didn't think to mention to me, oh, this is making you anemic, by the way. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so I told him like how it was affecting me and that I was having to miss work, and I'm a lawyer. I'm in court all the time, and so I can't just like keep rescheduling things because of my period. You know, and I thought he would understand that because he's like a big time surgeon, and if he had to keep rescheduling surgeries several times a month because he was in so much pain or bleeding so much, pretty sure he would want to fix that. He didn't seem to think it was that big of an issue. He prescribed me hormones, not birth control, just like straight up hormones. Don't ask me the difference because I don't really know. And I took them on like a Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning, like early morning, like 2 a.m., I started having symptoms of like an allergic reaction. I've had allergic reactions to medications before and it felt very similar. So I was like, this is alarming. I called the doctor. Yeah, I went to the ER. They were like, you seem like you're having an allergic reaction. You can't take this medication anymore. I was like, cool. They did blood work there. Still showed I was extremely anemic. They mentioned it to me finally. So I went back to the doctor and told him, you know, I can't take this medication anymore. And he was like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? Keep in mind, I had already told him from the first thing I said when I met him was I want a hysterectomy. I had been begging my gynecologist for a hysterectomy for years. I have known since I was a kid that I don't ever want to be pregnant. I don't ever want to carry a child. It's not for me. My mind has never changed on that. So he already knew that. He's like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, if I can't give you hormones, we don't really have any other options. And I was like, I mean, we do have another option. And he's like, well, you know, a hysterectomy will really only help the bleeding. I think your pain is not just from your uterus. I think it's in other spots. So I don't think a hysterectomy will help you. And I was like, well, the bleeding is like a significant issue that I'm dealing with. So yeah, the hysterectomy, even if it just helps the bleeding, would help a lot, but I'm sure it'll help some of the pain too. He wasn't having it. So I gave up on him, went to another doctor, told her everything I've been dealing with, and she immediately was like, if you're sure that you don't want kids, which it sounds like you are, and again, I should rephrase, not that I don't want kids, but that I don't want to carry children. That's never gonna change. And she's like, and you've been dealing with all these issues, and not only is it like affecting you directly, but you're anemic and dealing with chest pain and shortness of breath every day because you're bleeding so much. And I was taking iron supplements and I was still dealing with that. She was like, that's your choice, like it's your body, and I think a hysterectomy will help you. She did an ultrasound. She said my uterus, looks like there's some abnormalities in it. And so, yeah, she's like, if you want a hysterectomy, I'll give you a hysterectomy. I cried a lot. I'm gonna try not to cry right now. It's surreal. Like I said, I've been asking doctors for a hysterectomy for as long as I can remember. And I've always been told, you're too young, you're gonna change your mind, you are too young to know that right now. You don't know what your future partner's gonna want. What if they want kids? What if they want biological kids? Every excuse in the book. And I was ready to give up. I didn't, but I was about ready to. And I'm so glad I didn't. I'm so glad I went to this last doctor, because I don't want to cry. Yeah, I just think I wish there were more people like her in the world who recognize like how much this is affecting my life, and believe me when I say that this is what I want and that I'm not going to change my mind. Yeah, so I feel like this is already getting really long. I'm probably going to make a few videos about this, but I think this will be like the background. This is it for the background, I guess. But yeah, moral of the story is, if you are certain that you don't want to ever be pregnant, carry children, and a hysterectomy is something that you want, and you're sure that it's something that you want, I'm not trying to say that this is a decision to be made lightly, but if this is something that you've thought about and you are sure that you want it, and you've been dealing with pain like me for years and years and years, and bleeding and all the other hosts of issues, make sure you advocate for yourself, is really all I can say, because if I had given up after the doctor right before the one who said yes, I would have just taken the no. And I mean, I could have given up a long time ago, because I've asked multiple doctors before that, but even after I kept trying, I kept getting no's from multiple people, so it would have been easy for me to give up. And once I found this doctor who was willing to listen to me, and I'm not gonna cry. Yeah, I just am very grateful that I went to this doctor, and I'm grateful that she listen to me instead of placing her own fears about me potentially changing my mind at some point. Because really that's what I feel like all the other doctors are doing. It's like they're afraid that I'm gonna change my mind and come back and be like, why did you let me do that? And I guess that's a risk that you face, but I don't know how many times I can tell someone for years upon years upon years upon years that this is what I want and that I haven't changed my mind for that to like stick. You know, I have many friends my age who have children, and so I think at 29 years old, you know, if you can be old enough to make the decision to have multiple children that you have to care for at least 18 years, but realistically like the rest of your life, that you should also be able to make the decision to say that you don't ever want to do that. And again, I'm not even saying I don't want kids in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that I don't ever want to be pregnant. It's 2023. There are a lot of other ways to have a child that don't require me having a uterus. So I think I'm gonna end this here.